I don't think it's supposed to last that long. I think I've read somewhere that it was while the 16-year-old NieR, he has all of his memories. The reason why it started to glitch at the end was because his magical power was essentially exhausted since he wasn't supposed to exist without being fused with Noir for that long period of time. The second one is the bonus epilogue for Route E, which I recommend saving for last. Let's do them in order. I think that's the best way to do it. Makes good sense, exactly as you said, that's how it works. I can read the appendix version. Looks like we're following the order on the website. It makes logical sense. Without going into too much detail, is it safe to assume that the tree has both NieR and Weiss's most recent data? The reason why I started to glitch at the end was, okay, you've already said that. Are we going to read the stories in order on the website, whatever catches your interest? Let's go in the order of the website. Oh yeah, the amount of NieR content coming after the end of the game is huge. It would be a shame to stop at the game. I think most people stop at the game, but to be fair, I think the game is an iceberg. You get the top of the iceberg, which is what most people will experience and see. And then you've got all the deeper connections in between NieR Automata, and a little bit of the side content. You've got then even more deeper, all the Drakengard, and then you've got all the stories below that. We're not even under the water, technically. We're close to the water, but we're not under the water. This whole iceberg is a big thing. But going by the quality of this, it's amazing. Don't get me wrong. I would be interested in the whole franchise, but I didn't really get attached to anything in the Drakengard part of it, simply because we watched the analysis videos, but the whole Drakengard 1-2 thing was a little bit eh. What caught my attention was Drakengard 3 because it's a girl that swears like a sailor. That's what caught my interest. Okay. The Stone Flower. Oh god, we're getting an Emil. Oh, the chills. We're getting an Emil story. Almost every story has a unique illustration. We are definitely getting an Emil story. The Stone Flower. Oh, poor baby. Oh my god, it's short and sweet. Is it? Oh god. Oh wow. What's going on here? That's his sister, is it? Yeah, when you really think about it, that smile is forced. That's not a genuine smile. He doesn't have a choice in the matter. He's always smiling. You think he has a smile on his face so it's less threatening, but it's not really a smile. It's... wow. That's dark. That is dark. Let's save this song for when it hits. Let's save the song for when it's appropriate. I really appreciate the two soundtracks of these games. They are beautiful in more ways than one. Hauntingly beautiful, might I add. I will never forget the first time I heard that song. During the NieR Automata mission where you find the red hooded person and you go collecting all the photos and then you hack into the dead android and then you figure out who is the person that killed that android, and it turns out the person in the red hood is the assassin, and the music starts playing. They're a type E model, E for execution, and then 9S says something like, could he have known, or something like that? And then 2B says something along the lines of, some things are best left unknown. And in hindsight, my god. There is so much. We could do a full replay of the game and I think we would get a lot out of it. That's haunting. Personally, I think the Red and the Black is the most emotionally heavy taxing, so the other stories shouldn't take as long as that one. I think the Red and the Black has a lot to set up. whereas these ones are a bit shorter. But it doesn't mean they're not impactful. It's just when you're reading the red and the black, Nier's a kid, whereas these guys are soldiers. I get they're still young and they're kids, but this is not their first rodeo. Whereas for Nier, he's a kid that's struggling to pay for his sister's medicine. It has a completely different atmosphere to them. You're not dealing with a room full of soldiers that have already killed. You're dealing with a poor boy that's sacrificing himself for his sister. It just hits different. Ooh, in fresh year college, I saw Emil's face on like a vinyl cover or something in my English teacher's classroom, and I thought it was cool and just slightly creepy, so I drew the face on a sticky note and randomly stuck it in the middle of my teacher's books. I didn't tell him about it until the last day of school. I asked him a few days ago. It's been years. He never found it. Playing the game with all this context definitely makes it a new experience. Imagine being one of the people who played the original Nier and played this version after reading these books. It would hit so different. It would hit so different. I'm almost scared to replay it. You're not dealing with the average Saiyan, Frieza. You're dealing with a, have we been here before? I feel that we've been here before. Oh, we are doing this again. Yeah. The first time you play NieR Automata, hack and slash, kill all of the things. The first time 2B is choking 9S and making those weird noises, you're thinking, this is, should I be watching this? Is my door locked? The second time you're like, who the fuck are those red girls? The third route you're like, ooh, my fucking feels, ah! And then route D and E, no, wait. Ending C and D being the two various endings for 9S and 2B. See, they love doing that. Did you notice that? Even in this game, C and D are just different choices on the same ending. And you just load and play the other one and you're done. And then ending E is just next level. Yoko Taro loves to do that. You're sort of intimidated when they say it has so many endings. Because you think you're going to have to do a completely different playthrough, but you're actually not. The second playthrough is to let you get the context. The third one is to get you to the ending. Yeah, I think I should be thankful that in this game, Route B and C, you don't play the first part of the game pre-time skip. I complained a little bit because we didn't get Yona's cooking in the early part, but imagine if we had to do the whole early part. It would have been a little bit, you know what I mean? My personal headcanon for the story was the Devil and Popola got all the gestalts of all the children he abused and got their revenge, and Nier got the final blow. I don't think the other two guys were the children, though. But the black look that Devila had in her eyes, like that dead glare, I'd like to think that she set it up in such a way so Nier has his opportunity. Because, I mean... Oh man, just thinking back to it, Jesus. It's, oh my god. Oh, Yoko Taro, what have they done to you, my boy? You are damaged beyond repair. What have they done to you, my boy? Okay, let's jump into this before we, let's not try to psychoanalyze Yoko Taro. We might leave crying. You know that meme? What is that meme? Meme, 4chan meme, bed-in woman smoking. I hope it doesn't turn out to be porn. What 4chan cries out during sex? No, that's not the meme. There's a particular meme I have in mind. No, that's not it. Bloody hell. It's this it's this meme where you have these two people in bed, and they're both, well, one's male, one's female, but it doesn't really matter. And the male is in bed crying, like bawling his eyes out. And the woman is just like with her hands behind her back with a cigarette in her mouth, like... We would be the crying children, whereas Yoko Taro would be... Yeah. First time? Yeah. 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 When I saw Grimoire Rubrum again after reading the story, it definitely made me feel bad for her. And it hurt seeing Weiss not recognize who she was. And she was just helplessly running. You know what would be even more fucked? If she was sentient, just unable to speak. And the entire time she's just trying to get away from Grimoire Weiss, not knowing why he's trying to kill her. Imagine the fear, the sadness, the shock, trying to run away and someone that previously saved you is trying to kill you. Imagine that torture. Go ahead and tear out my heart, why don't you? I just double clicked. She wasn't programmed to be able to speak. Double checked. Yeah, well, just because she wasn't able to speak doesn't mean she wasn't able to think and realize what's going on. And that's the real sad thing. Man, this is fucked. I'm getting so many... Oh, we need to stop this before I go nuts. The stone flower. Oh god, this is not going to end well. God damn it. Oh man. The hope of humanity and despair of sacrifice. Red flowers blossom within her two pierced eyes. Oh, what are you doing to the poor sister? Oh god. I'm scared already. I need a teddy bear. The dreams she had at nap time were always warm and bright. Running about the lawn, holding a kitten on her lap, her father's back, the treats baked by her mother, the row of planters in the greenhouse. The dreams she had at night were different from her dreams at dawn. How strange, thought Halua each time she spoke in the brightness of mid-afternoon. Everything she forgot while she was awake, she saw in her dreams. To see them so clearly, even though they were gone. Her mother and father died in an accident. The kitten might still be alive, but it would have stopped being a kitten long ago. 2 years had passed since then. She was sure another family would be living in the house with the greenhouse by now. All she had left was Emil, who had played tag with her on the lawn. Her little brother was the only one who had always been with her since he was born. The whole of the past 10 years. Are you awake, Halua? Sensei. The bright, warm memories vanished without a trace. She could no longer remember what she had been dreaming about. You're covered in sweat. Perhaps it would be a good idea to change into your summer clothes soon. Sensei took a handkerchief from her pocket and used it to wipe the sweat from Halua's forehead and neck. Then she awoke. Emil, sleeping beside her. You wake up too, Emil. It's snack time. What is it today, Sensei? Again? She thought. To the response of biscuits and cocoa. Biscuits, rice crackers, sponge cake. These were the only 3 treats they were ever given. This was a facility after all, and she had no mother to make different snacks for her each day anymore. Halua knew it was wrong to even ask. But children enjoy snacks. So whatever they were given, as long as they were called sweets, they would be happy. The adults, though, the adult thought. My bad. But children enjoy snacks, so whatever they were given, as long as they were called sweets, they wouldn't be happy. The adults thought. She was left no choice but to pretend that she was the same way. Emil, unlike Halua, was a childish child. Today, as usual, B happily arranged alphabet-shaped biscuits on the plate and struggled over which to eat first, before finally putting one in his mouth. The biscuits weren't particularly tasty, but as she watched Emil eat, she wondered if maybe they tasted as good as the ones her mother used to make. Somehow frustrated, Halua tried saying something sisterly sounding. Don't play with your food, but you've got the spelling wrong too. You're missing an E here. At the facility, Halua and Emil were taught in their native language. The language was Japanese. The last time Halua and Emil had been taught in their mother tongue was more than 2 years ago. It was only natural for Emil to forget how to spell things. Look, this is how you spell it. Halua took an E-shaped biscuit from her plate and moved it to Emil's. Right away, Emil smiled broadly. You're such a great big sister, Halua. Sensei, holding a cup of coffee, smiled. At snack time, she always sat at the same table as Halua and Emil, drinking coffee and talking to them. When she was at the facility, they would eat meals together too. Sometimes she would read books to them in bed at night, and in the morning she would always come and wake them. She was like a real mother. I'm an only child, so I'm jealous of you two. Was it true? Did she really think that? They hadn't left the facility even once, spending each boring day there. They had lived this way for 2 years. What about it was there to be jealous of? Man, when they say facility, I just think of the underground thing under the mansion, where there is that circular playground, and the rest is all cold laboratories. It's like the Truman Show on crack. Most of all, nothing about the facility was normal. Halua, who loved books, knew what kind of place orphanages, which took place in children's... Most of all, nothing about the facility was normal. Halua, who loved books, knew what kind of place orphanages, which took in children without parents, were. Lots of children in a school-like building, several beds to a room, tens of them eating simultaneously in a big dining room. She had been in a room with 6 others when she had been first admitted. There were lots of children who looked to be the same age as her. They ate their meals in a big dining room too. Maybe that's why you would call an orphanage a... Maybe that's what you would call a normal orphanage. One by one, the children she shared a room with disappeared, a steady stream of new children entering, which didn't seem quite normal. Finally, since Halua and Emil spoke a different language to the other children, they were moved to this place and given their own room. Thinking about it now, that seems strange too. It wasn't like Halua and Emil spoke no Japanese at all. In actuality, since they had been moved here, they had lessons each day, but they were conducted in Japanese. The very lessons themselves were suspicious. They weren't the kind of thing you have in school. All they did was answer questions in front of a machine. It was more like a test than a lesson. Sometimes the lessons seemed more like playing around. Those were like games rather than tests. Something was definitely strange about this place. They rarely saw any children beside themselves. The only other people in the building were adults wearing white outfits like Sensei. What's wrong? Sensei looked at Halua, who had suddenly stood up with worried eyes. She ran behind Sensei, burying her face in her back. Mother. She felt faint laughter. Sensei slid out of the chair and turned around, embracing Halua. You're so spoiled, Halua. The hand that stroked her hair was gentle. It was like her real mother's. That's not fair, me too. She heard Emil stand up, and a voice saying, all right, with a laugh. Hey Sensei, are you on our side? Can I believe you're different from the other adults? Her carefully ironed white coat smelled faintly of chemicals. My mother never smelled like this, Halua thought. Was it because of this smell that she couldn't fully trust her? Or maybe it was because Sensei really thought the same things as all the other adults. Do you love me? Yes, I love you, Halua. You too, Emil. Then be on our side. Don't betray us. Protect me. Halua repeated this over and over in her head as she pressed her cheek tightly against the white coat-wearing chest. After her nighttime temperature measurement, and having just a chapter of a book read to her, it was time to sleep. Another long, boring day had come to an end. Despite each day being like this, Emil was always smiling. He counted the clouds that drifted past outside the window, banged randomly on the keys of the piano in the corner of the room, and drew the same picture over and over again on paper. Emil had not a single doubt that this wasn't an orphanage you would find in stories, where something bad was happening. Why do I suddenly think of the orphanage in Resident Evil 2? For Halua, this was simultaneously relieving and a source of worry. She wanted Emil to smile, but she couldn't help but worry about how defenseless he was. So Halua thought she had to be cautious enough for both of them, vigilant towards everything. What lessons they'd had that day, what they had eaten and drunk, and what kind of adults they met, what they spoke about. She wanted to write these things down so she wouldn't forget, but she couldn't. They were probably under surveillance. Why do I get the sneaking suspicion that they're drugging her? When they had only just arrived, she had intentionally pretended that her left eye hurt. When she was alone in her room, she would frown and press on her left eye. She kept this a secret from both Emil and Sensei, of course. The following day, her eye was closely examined, despite the fact she only did what she did when she was all alone. Clever girl. Are you awake, Emil? Huh? Responded a sleepy voice. She softly reached out and touched Emil's hand. When they were moved to this building, she was actually supposed to have been put in a separate room to Emil. She had insisted that they couldn't sleep if they weren't together. After spending the whole evening crying, they were allowed to share a bed. Be careful, don't trust the adults. She couldn't say it out loud. She was sure someone was listening, but she wished hard as she gripped his hand. She dearly wished she had the ability to convey her thoughts to him just by thinking them. That day, she had a bad feeling that began in the morning. Something felt very wrong. When Sensei had said that instead of their morning lessons they would be undergoing a physical examination, the feeling turned to conviction. Nothing good came after an examination. When she thought about it, when she had been in the first building, several children always vanished after having a health check. It was after an exam that they had been moved here. Perhaps they were held in order to ascertain the optimal time to move the children somewhere. They might be moved to yet another building. They would be separated from Sensei. What's wrong, Halua? Are you feeling ill? Coming back to herself, she was standing before Sensei, who looked at her with worried eyes. The hand that touched her forehead to check for a fever was comforting. She could almost have cried. Sensei, I don't want to move again. I don't want anything done to me. But she couldn't say it. There was a part of her that couldn't trust Sensei after all. She could call her mother and be pampered by her, but deep down she couldn't rely on her. Halua marveled at how Emil wasn't upset about the exam. Having blood drawn was fine. It hurt a little, but she knew right away what they were doing. But when they attached cold, sucker-like things across her body and connected her to unfamiliar machines, she found it hard to bear. Like when they put her inside a box made of machines, she wanted to tear out the cords from the suckers and run away. Just when she thought she couldn't take any more, the exam would finally end, and the adults would tell her she could go back to her room. Today was different. After removing the suckers and cords attached to her body, they told her to go into the next room to change into her exam clothes. Beside that, Emil, who should have been in the same room, was gone. Anxious, she began to sob, and a woman in white opened the door and through as though to hurry her. She was an unpleasant-looking woman who both did and didn't resemble Sensei. The adjacent room was large and empty. Strange patterns were drawn on the walls and floor, and a large chair stood all alone in the center of the room. A crowd of adults in white coats stood around the chair. One of them told her to sit. Before she could answer, another adult made Halua sit down. The chair was metal and cold. Don't get worked up. We discovered during the exam that you have a serious illness. The voice was gentle, but she didn't know which of the adults was speaking. At some point, she had been blindfolded. She tried to tear it off, but her hands and feet were bound. If you don't undergo surgery to remove it immediately, your life is in danger. It's a lie, she thought. Nothing is wrong with me. Nothing hurts, and I don't have a fever. My stomach is fine, and I don't have a cold. Emil, where are you? Oh god, she's blindfolded. They did the thing, didn't they? We mustn't allow the infection to spread, so Emil has gone back to his room. There's no need to worry. That's not what I'm worried about. I have to get Emil out of here fast. She called Emil's name frantically, but quickly fell into despair. Her mouth was covered, and however hard she shouted, no one would hear. She could smell antiseptic. There was a cold sensation, and her arm pricked with a pain. She had been injected with something. When her surprised cry ceased, she heard a snippet of the adults' conversation. This must be the 6th now. We can't scrap any more specimens. No, we'll succeed with this one. If she has even a little self-awareness left, that alone should... What were they talking about? What did they mean by the 6th? What did... If something is left, I mean. Even if we fail, she has a brother, right? A direct relative should have the aptitude. She could feel the blood turn to ice in her veins. They were going to kill her. Emil too. Help, Sensei. Save Emil. The screen failed to materialize, and all that came was darkness. Halua heard a voice calling her name. It was neither her mother or her father. It wasn't Sensei either. Who could it be? Emil only ever called her sister. Oh right, one of the adults was calling her. She was fed up with lessons. Maybe it wouldn't be as bad as a physical exam though. Wait, hadn't she just had one of those? Yes, when she tried to go back to her room afterwards. No, she hadn't gone back. She hadn't been able to. In a second, her memories rewound. Halua shot up. She turned around her. In that room, the one with a strange pattern on the walls and floor. But something was strange. Halua, do you understand me? She turned in the direction the voice had come from. No one was there. Over here. The voice came from a different direction this time. She turned again, but still no one was there. It seemed like she could only hear their voices. That was when she realized why she had felt that something was strange. Wonderful. It was a success. Ignoring the voices, Halua looked down at her feet. The floor was so far away. Of course. This whole time she had seemed so high up that it bothered her immensely. It was like she had been put on something tall, but she had a strange feeling knowing that wasn't the case. The legs just looked like the bones of a skeleton she'd seen in an illustrated encyclopedia, as did the arms, their color reminiscent of that of a rotten tree. Something was wrapped around her torso, that she could barely see it. What's this? She tried to remove the thing wrapped around her, but it was too tight. The arm moved? Slowly she tried to raise the hand. She found that she could move it at will. She spread the hand out and moved the fingers. The thumb, index finger, middle finger. Could it be? The strange voice continued saying things like experimental weapon number 6 and the hope of mankind, but she didn't care. She tried to stand. She couldn't move. That was when she understood that the thing wrapped around her was her own body. No, this isn't my body. Halua struggled. She wanted to run away, to get out of there, to get away from this body. She flailed her legs helplessly. The disembodied voice changed it to a soothing tone. Shut up, shut up, shut up! She hammered on the wall with all her strength. Stop that, she heard a panicked voice say. But she had no intention of obeying. She banged on the wall again, feeling a heavy rejection throughout her arms, along with a dull pain. She finally understood. This is my body. These monstrous arms and legs belong to me. Timidly, she put her hand on her face. It certainly didn't feel like that of a human. In fact, she didn't even know if it was a face. All she knew was that she was no longer human. I'll never be able to see Emil again. If he sees me like this, he'll get scared away and run. No doubt about it. Emil is such a scaredy cat. Thinking of Emil, she remembered something else. The words, even if we fail, she has a brother, right? A direct relative should have the aptitude. The adults in white lab coats had also said, this is the 6th. The voice before had said experimental weapon number 6. That meant that the 5 other children had previously been made to look like this. Maybe the children in the building she had first been put into had gradually vanished because they were used as subjects for these kinds of human experimentation. Out of them, only the children with aptitude after becoming experimental weapons were chosen and moved to another building. It seemed as though Halua was the first success. That meant that they had established the procedure by which to create them, and her twin brother Emil had the same aptitude. She thought of Emil's face, his innocent, unsuspecting smile. She had to save him. This thought turned into a brutal force. Tearing off her restraints, Halua stood. She kicked the door in the corner of the room. First of all, she had to get out of there, but with her body, she would never fit through any door made for humans. She tore down both the door and the wall. An alarm began to sound. Shutter-like metal boards covered the walls. Hurriedly, Halua tried to stop them with her hand, but something like an invisible force pushed it away. Thinking about it, she was a weapon. She was a monster with a power so dangerous that just by hitting the wall, she had sent cracks running through it. Just by kicking it, she had destroyed a solid door. No one would be stupid enough to let something like that run wild. Wild beasts are chained up and kept in cages. These metal boards are probably part of some kind of special system, something that even an experimental weapon can't destroy. Suddenly the room was plunged into darkness. The lights had turned off, the alarm ceased, and all was silent. She had been shut in. They had stopped the alarm because they had decided that Halua couldn't get out. She tried touching the wall again. It looked like blue fireworks had been set off in the darkness. Halua's body took the full force of the power pushing her back. I won't give in. I'm going to protect the meal. I can't give in. Her arms, legs, her whole body creaked. Intense pain shooting through her. Her vision went wide. Something swelled and exploded. Suddenly her body became light. The repellent force vanished and her limbs were freed. It was neither pitch black nor bright white. Halua stood in completely normal darkness. A shrill alarm bell rang out, bringing her back to her senses. The wall was crumbling. She went outside, but no one tried to block her path. They probably hadn't expected Halua would escape from the room. Maybe they hadn't even imagined that she would break free of her restraints. She recalled a panicked voice commanding her to stop. Shutters had been placed where the corridor began, but compared to the wall, they were like paper. Halua kicked through them with ease and proceeded onward. I have to destroy it. Every single thing in this facility. I won't let them make Emil into a monster. I have to get rid of everything related to experimental weapons. A brutal force welled up inside her, letting it all out. It turned into a blade that cut up all around her. Glaring at the wall blocking her path, it turned down into a mass of flames. Just by wishing it, she could destroy things in her kinds of interesting ways. Now that she could no longer be called human, she reasoned, she had obtained inhuman powers. Were the adults trying to use this power to fight something? Had they thought they could use obedient children since it was convenient for them? The adults in the white coats fled in a panic amidst the rubble and clouds of dust. She couldn't let a single escape. Halua grabbed the ones closest to her and squeezed. Like ripened fruit that were crushed limply in her hand, without leaving a trace. Where is Emil? What about Sensei? Maybe she took Emil and fled. No, Sensei wouldn't have done that. She knew what was going on here. She knew that the siblings were being raised so they could be turned into monsters. After all, she was one of the adults too. She had been nothing more than their kind keeper. At some point she appeared before her, wearing the same white lab coat as always. She stood there looking up at Halua. I wanted to trust her. I was so happy when she told me she loved me. I loved listening to her voice when she read to me. Sensei's lips moved. She seemed to be calling out to Halua and saying that she was sorry. I can't forgive you. She was so angry she almost lost control of herself. Her heart tugged, like it would burst. Something was trying to blot her out. With all her strength, she mowed down what was before her. A white coat shot straight at the wall, stained with red. Liar! I hate you! Halua sobbed and screamed. Neither tears nor sound came out. And still, she cried. Still, she screamed. As she did so, she saw herself reflected in the tempered glass. Her face, round with red eyes, was that of a monster. But strangely, she didn't feel sad. If anything, it seemed comical. That wasn't why she was sad. Why she was crying. Run, Emil. Go somewhere far away from here. Somewhere with no adults in white and no sensei. No one. How long had passed? It felt like days, and yet only a moment. Everything on the facility premises had been reduced to a pile of rubble. Would destroying this be enough? She hoped so. Sister. She wondered if she was hearing things. No one would call a monster like that her sister. She turned. It was Emil. Without a doubt, wearing a somehow sorrowful expression, he reached out his hand. Forgetting how she looked, Halua rushed over to him. We have to get out of here, Emil. Right now. Let's go somewhere far away together. She wanted to run to him, but her legs wouldn't move. They began turning to stone. It wasn't just her legs, either. The entire body was petrifying. Naturally, at this point, if she felt like she could quite easily release herself from the petrification, she knew this. It wouldn't take much, but... Sister, Emil had been turned into a weapon, just like her. He looked the same, but he had been given terrible eyes that would turn whatever he looked at to stone. I couldn't protect you. I wanted to, but something tugged at her heart again. She felt like it was blotted out. Was it anger? Sadness? I'm sorry. It's fine now. Halua smiled. Her face had already turned to stone, and she didn't even know if she could smile with that face. But her human mind was vanishing. She knew that. Your magic is too powerful, so they said you have to be sealed away because it's too dangerous. I'm sorry. Just looking at Emil's face on the verge of tears hurt. Please, petrify me more. If you don't, I'll get straight out. Don't let me wake up again. What colors would she dream in when she turned to stone? Emil's voice calling her grew faint. Halua simply gave herself up to a cold sleep. I had a feeling we were reading the point of view of Halua when Emil would get sent in. Oh! Did we actually read the Emil one? We read the Emil one at some point. I don't remember when. Yeah, they used Emil to stop her. Remember we read the story. How he was getting kicked to the ground. And the guy said, don't open your eyes. And his face was bleeding and everything. I remember reading it. We read Emil's point of view in the game. Oh my god. So she was sentient. Wow. Fucking hell. Oh my god, pain everywhere. Why do you do this, Yoko Taro? Why do you do this?
Vice, you dumbass! Start making sense, you rotten book, or you're gonna be sorry! Maybe I'll rip your pages out one by one, or maybe I'll put you in the goddamn furnace! How can someone with such a big smart brain get hypnotized like a little bitch, huh? Oh, Shadow Lord, I love you, Shadow Lord! Come over here and give Vice a big sloppy kiss, Shadow Lord! Now pull your head out of your goddamn ass and start fucking helping us!